Hello, this is Angie Yingst, and you're listening to Centered, grounded conversations about the metaphysical. Blessed March, friends. It's Angie Yingst with your March Tarot and Earth Medicine reading. They say March roars in like a lion and leaves as a lamb, but this March is going to roar and continue roaring because there's a lot of astrological shifting this month. And we may want to roar, cry, mew, dance the Macarena, hide under a blanket. This is a month we've all been waiting for. At least that's what we were told we were supposed to be doing at the beginning of the year. In my membership group, someone mentioned the crazy astrology in March, and I had totally forgotten. I was so caught up in what I thought would be a really mild February. It was anything but for me. So I think, some of us has been feeling the shift of all those retrograde planets going direct and some of the shifts that we're going to be going through in March. So if you felt like me and saying to yourself, hey, what gives? I thought this was going to be calm. Just remember you're laying the foundation to change, adapt. March is a month of really big astrological changes as 6 planets shift signs. So for the first time in 3 years, for one of them, and another for the first time in 15. So life is going to pick up some speed and some va-va-voom as Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and the Sun enter Aries, which is a really fast-paced fire sign, and it prepares us for change, big change, transformation, transmutation, and we're going to see some of that shift over the next few months. So Aries is a cardinal fire sign, and it likes to lead, it likes to change, it likes leading a change. So if you're an early riser like me, maybe you've been noticing the stunning alignment of Venus and Jupiter in the early morning sky. This is a yearly event that we get to see, but it tends to bring a lot of positive ideals in astrology, and we look at manifestation and wishes fulfilled and connection and joy, and that all happens yearly with this alignment. But the big shift actually takes place when Saturn enters Pisces on March 7th, which coincides with this Virgo full moon. So Saturn spends 3 years in each sign, making this a really important and notable change, because Saturn first entered Aquarius in March 2020. Don't know what was happening then, just like another March, right? But it's a movement into Pisces that's a huge deal, because Saturn's been in signs that are ruled by Saturn, so Capricorn and Aquarius, since 2017. And because of that, we've been dealing with structure and big structural changes. And so when it moves into Pisces, it's kind of a big deal because it's signaling a shift in that focus on structure, and it shifts it into responsibility and limitations that are ruled by our dreams, our imagination, by less earthly ideas and more watery emotional ideals. And so we move into the spiritual. And so one thing to know is, like, Saturn does not like to be in Pisces necessarily, so they don't spend a ton of time together, but this is a way to help us infuse our structures, infuse our rules with more heart-centeredness, with more compassion. And that's wonderful. So both Pisces and Saturn bring endings. And so we expect this transit to bring some tower-like moments. And that's referring to the tower in the tarot. The tower is, we're going to talk about a little later, but the tower shows a tower being struck by lightning and everything coming down. So we just know that the transit is going to hit us like that. It's not going to be like a lightning bolt. So our life isn't going to come crashing down March 1st, but we begin to think about the things that matter to us, the things that we have come to know as true, because one of the things about Pisces and Pisces season is that we feel our feelings, and the structure that we've built around us. And I talk about this a lot when I talk about the tower, is that usually the tower comes around us when we've been protecting ourselves. So I use the, fairy tale idea of the princess who has the omen that she's going to, die when she's 16. And the father is so worried, puts her up in a tower and locks her away. And while that's protective for a long time, it becomes like a prison for her. So she does everything to get out and thereby ensuring her fate. So the idea of the tower is that it comes down. It comes down because it's become a prison. And we're not about to change the protection of the tower. So we need to get shook up by the universe. So last time Saturn was in Pisces was 1993 to 1996. And during that time, there was a lot going on. So we had the fallout of the collapse of the Soviet Union. We had different shifts and changes. So the last time that happened before then was 64 to 67, which we could see the beginning of setting up revolutions within consciousness in the U.S. So when we have this Virgo full moon happening in the sign opposite on Pisces on the day when Saturn is in Pisces, we begin to see this more as a collective rather than a personal shift. So things that we're facing personally and collectively over the last 3 years are going to begin resolving. And then a new cycle starts. And so a lot of this new cycle is going to be about self-care, about emotional issues, about how you care for the self, how you talk about your emotions, those kind of things. And then Venus enters Taurus on March 16th. And so the second half of the month is going to be about looking at comfort and pleasure and prioritizing relaxation and pleasure-oriented activities. And that's going to be something that actually will work into Pisces really well. So the spring equinox takes place March 20th, and the sun's going to enter Aries, followed by an Aries new moon on the 21st. And that's always a new beginning, but with that spring equinox happening right around the same time, this is a really good time to do some of that work of setting intentions and thinking about how you want to ride on the wave of this change. There's some fresh energy coming in, and the new moon is always a great time to work with that. It's a really good time to do self-care work. It's a really good time to do clearings, groundings, and start fresh. So a few days later on March 23rd, Pluto will enter Aquarius. So that's leaving Capricorn for the first time since 2008. And Pluto is a planet of total and complete transformation. Just that little thing. And power struggles, death, and rebirth. And it'll be kind of in Aquarius until June 11th. So just noticing what's going to come up during this time, because while Pluto is a planet of creation and destruction, it also is entering Aquarius, which is the revolutionary. It's the one that has its foot in both structure and change. And so it ends up reprioritizing things for structures and collective. And that's going to be going on for the next 20 years. So Mars in Gemini will come to an end on March 25th, which is nice. And it's going to shift gears because it moves into Cancer, which is very sensitive and emotional, another water sign. So really powerful time to examine the way our emotions influence how we walk in the world, whether they come out straightforward or they're more passive. Cancer can be an aggressive or a passive aggressive, and that's often how we're dealing with it when it's in Mars. So Mars will enter Cancer after 7 months in Gemini. And I really think that most people are going to feel this as more of a relief than feeling their feelings and being in their feelings too much. So don't be afraid of it moving into Cancer. I think that's going to be a great sign for making changes, because Cancer is also a cardinal sign, and it's known for initiating emotional changes. When you felt stuck, when you felt like you don't know a way out, especially in a relationship, this is going to be a great connection. So there is a lot of big change energy. And astrologer Kyle Thomas said, March 2023 could be one of the most important months of your entire life. Major cosmic changes are in store, which will propel humanity to evolve even more. We will experience several powerful planetary shifts as major outer planets dance into newfound territory. In truth, we are officially entering the age of Aquarius on a more profound level as Pluto, the planet of rebirth and transformation, moves into the heavens of the water bearer and inches even closer to where the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn took place at the end of 2020. This will set off a chain reaction of events that will unfold over the coming 2 decades ahead. Saturn, our planet of karma and life lessons, will also leave behind the heights of Aquarius to venture into Pisces for the coming 3 years as well. On top of this, we have 1 full month free of planetary retrogrades as well, ensuring productivity, speed, momentum in our lives. No matter what, be sure to seize the day swiftly and pay attention to little signals from the universe about how your life is set to evolve in the many years to come. Thank you, Kyle Thomas, astrologer. Check out his website if you're interested in some of these deeper readings. I really am a dabbler of astrology, and I read a lot of different astrologers. I don't do it myself. So that's why looking at the source material is really important. So when I was pulling the tarot of the month, I was thinking, I think the tarot tower is going to come because of all this change. And in the tarot, the tower, of course, represents abrupt change. And I pulled instead the star, which is the card that comes after the tower. And the star is a really blessed card. It's really one of the most beautiful images and messages of the tarot because there's a goddess. I think Marcia Messino calls her goddess Isis Urania, and some people think she's Astrea, the goddess of the cosmos. Some people think she's Mother Earth. This idea is that she is one that brings hope. She's naked, so she's showing her innocence and vulnerability, but she's pouring water. And so she has this sense of coming after this major destruction. She's the number 17 of the major arcana, so she goes back to the 8 card. And the 8 is strength. And so one of the important things about strength is she has a very similar pose, and you can kind of see their connection. But so after the demolition that happens in the tower, the star comes in and she's balancing 2 jugs of water, one to feed and nurture the earth and another to replenish the spirit. She's also anointing, blessing, and bestowing gifts on the person who gets this card. And all of us got it this month. So, of course, water has a lot of meanings in the tarot. It's a psychic symbol. It's an emotional symbol. It's a love symbol. So the star having a connection with water is really hard to miss. The star is the ultimate hope after the tower, that things can be righted. They haven't been righted yet, but it's that kind of hope that everything's going to be okay. We get that feeling like, okay, this is the healing I needed. And so her pouring her water into water shows her ability to transmute energies from death and destruction into rebirth and the blossoming of the soul. The goddess is crowned with 8 stars. She has 8 stars in the sky, and 8s are about power and success. They're about strength, of course. So, a lot of tarot readers and tarot writers talk about the star being kind of esoteric. It's about hope and optimism, but nothing. It's like building castles in the sky. And yet hope is so powerful. If you don't have that about your healing, it doesn't quite get there. So we have to have belief in our own healing power, our own ability to regenerate and to grow again and to rebirth. So a lot of this card, and especially the combo of the Tower and the Star, are about self-acceptance, about surrendering to win, about not stepping away from the Tower, but seeing the possibility in the Tower, everything collapsing, and understanding that we get to build from there up, So the Tower is about ego and bravado and building false protections against knowing ourselves, truly, and admitting our weaknesses. We're not in control, the Tower kind of reminds us. And then the Star comes in and says, you're only in control of your own healing, your own knowledge, your own humility, your own reaction, your own hope and faith. So there's really no mistake that they're like these 7 little stars and one big star. And that, those stars for a lot of tarot readers and those of us who do energy healing are about the chakra system. So the huge star in the middle is like the divine, and the rest of them are chakras. So when we get the star and we work with the star, a lot of self-care comes in. We have to think about when can I, should I be working my energy systems? Yes. Self-work is really important. The work of the star, though, begins with meditation and journey work. And we then can move into energy healing, Reiki, crystal healing, other modalities. Working on yourself is a really important part of healing work. If you're a healer and you only work on other people, you're only giving them half of the healing they can receive, because you have to work on yourself. So we want to really realign, balance, facilitate healing for others by doing that for ourselves first. So what we find in the star are steps towards healing and faith. For one of my religion teachers used to always say, knowledge is who your mother is. Faith is knowing who your father is. So for some of us, we come to the star's wisdom after a dark time. So think about what have you been struggling with? This is the time to start seeing the healing coming in from those struggling, stuck times. We kind of recognize that our shadow selves sometimes run the show, but this is not the place of despair. It's a place that we start our enlightenment. So, really begin that hard work of self-healing. March is a time of healing, balance, peace, navigating those waters of our emotions. And so the star comes in after the Tower, but before the moon. So the star invites us to revel in the feeling of being emptied out by the experience of the Tower, to escape in a place of healing and alchemy, one that transforms the wounds into wisdom. So in the beautiful writing of Rachel Pollack, she says that she thinks of the figure on the card as Persephone, having just gone to the underworld through death, temperance, then you go into the devil, then you go into the Tower. So these are underworld visions, and, she says after the underworld, after sharing the mysteries of death and rebirth, we come to this place of the star. And so the theme of this month, particularly with Pluto, the planet of that total transformation, and the planet that, we can kind of think of as the phoenix, the one that rises again and tests the waters in Aquarius. We're kind of working with this water bearer image here in the star, because we get to focus on healing and rebirth when you're in those in-between liminal spaces between lives, right? We go to the star, we fill up on those sacred waters, we are healed. We accept these stars inside of us, the sacred geometry. We accept the waters, the light, the promise of rebirth. So we have these kind of death rebirth moments throughout our life. So this is time to enjoy your body, to balance your chakras, to lay some crystals on you, and to take a bath, to drink clear, clean water, and accept healing, and revel in that promise of rebirth. Talk about the earth medicine for March. So coming in with the plant medicine is clary sage. Now, generally when I pull a plant medicine for the month, I do one of two things. I either sit in meditation or journey and ask which plant wants to come forward. And other times I will pull oracle cards. And I would say most of the time I pull oracle cards, because I find them very connected, and I have some great oracle decks. And so I do that with like the crystals, the plant, and the animal. But this month I was doing the tarot, and I just pulled out my herb deck and I wasn't quite settled. And I just like picked the top card, which was Clary Sage, and I put it back in the deck. And I was like, you know what? I really should do all of the ritual that I do when I pull cards. Even though I'd already done that for the tarot, I thought I should anoint myself and clear the deck and shuffle and do all the things I teach my students to do. And I did, and I cut it into 3 and then put the deck together. And so the middle of the deck was on top. And of course I pulled Clary Sage again. And I thought, okay, you want to come through. You are very talkative. And little did I know all of the medicine of Clary Sage. I don't work with Clary Sage on a regular basis. So looking at the medicine and the magical uses has been so fascinating that I am so in this month with working with Clary Sage. So Clary Sage is actually a biennial flower, meaning it blooms every 2 years. It's ruled by the moon, and it derives from the mint family. And though a lot of people use it as an essential oil, the plant medicine of it is worked with in spiritual work and magical workings and teas and salves and those kind of things. And it's used for dreaming, prophecy, glamour magic, which we'll talk about quite a bit. Euphoria is another aspect of it, revealing the hidden, traversing the underworlds for knowledge and nourishment. And one of the things about that I think is really interesting is kind of talking about the star and Persephone being possibly, another way to look at the star, because she was the one in Greek mythology who traveled both worlds, lived in both worlds. So, a lot of its magical uses aren't used like in the daily home. We don't really talk about Clary Sage, but the flower does kind of show you its use and the use it used to have in the past, because unlike a lot of flowers, the Clary Sage flower isn't shaped like a sun. So if you look at daisies or even like chamomile, the way they're open and look like the sun shows you, it's always like facing the sun. It's very solar energy. The Clary Sage flower has a shape that looks like a mouth that's speaking. So interestingly, it's said to be a herb of prophecy, which is kind of a cool connection that way. So Clary Sage is a plant that's said to walk between worlds. And what does that exactly mean? Well, it's because of the way it grows. In its first year of the 2-year growing cycle, it kind of aligns itself with winter. So even though it looks dead above the ground, the underground, which is, like a lot of plants, it's still alive. It looks dead. It goes dormant, but it actually uses its large flat leaves to funnel sunlight down to its roots. And so it kind of works with the darkness and works with the protection of the earth to store enough energy to transform itself in the second year as it sends stalks up. So it looks like a completely different flower and plant the second year. And one of the things it does is that it obviously grows pretty tall, but the blooms look larger and more nectar rich to pollinators because the leaves actually appear like they're flowers. So it creates a kind of glamour effect where, the pollinators will kind of think it's a flower and then come in and say, oh, it's this very, very small place for nectar. So it both plans for and engages in the winter and the darkness as a time and place for activity rather than dormancy. And so it does kind of bring itself in with those winter and darkness workings, like dream worlds and intuitive work and third eye work. And, so its ability to kind of cast the glamour of being dead rather than alive, and then having this abundance appearing flower, which actually masks the appearance of it being actually smaller and more vulnerable than it is. So it kind of gives these illusions out there, but it has a kind of truth behind it, which is that, it shows you what is. Now, clary isn't related to physical sight. When you use that clary meaning clear, it's seeing the truth beyond the glamour, right? So in folk magic, the flower was rubbed on the eyelids of someone who was thought to be bewitched, to cast away spells. And in scent and taste, clary sage is used as a substitute for more expensive flowers in perfumery, for example, and for adulterating wine. It also potentiates alcohol in herbal wines and creates like a euphoric kind of feeling when it's added. So it holds the energy of the full moon, which is where it gets that euphoria and lunacy, quote unquote lunacy connection. And it has that feminine nature because it raises the spirits, but also, in herbal medicine, it regulates estrogen and encourages hormone production. And for this reason, you should be cautious for people like me who have had estrogen, like their cancers are fed by estrogen. So it's not for everyone's use. And you always have to check your plant medicine for those kind of connections too. But clary sage really helps us increase our ability to see mysteries and to work with our third eye and our intuitive sight. If we're interested in prophecy or in divination, we can use clary sage for that. It's great for dream recall, dream understanding. It helps to dispel any lies or glamours that someone's putting in front of us. It increases dream faculty. So it's similar to like mugwort in that way. It provides the pathway for it. It's very protective, like mugwort, and it kind of increases the vividness of dreams. So, it's just a wonderful ally in that realm. In rituals, clary sage is useful as a relaxer. It lowers blood pressure. Some people don't like the smell. It has some aphrodisiac effects. It helps relieve pain. And it's kind of sometimes referred to as the sweat of Mama Earth. But it is a powerful tool for aligning with the earth and with the divine feminine and with the dark goddess. So it's not actually sage. So just so you know, like you don't get that confused. So it doesn't have the same, it doesn't work in the same way as sage. So ways to work with it, you can make a tincture with alcohol. It's good for right before sleep. You can make an herb bundle and place it under your pillow. You can use the essential oil of clary sage for body oils, lotions, perfumes, bathwater. When you're using the fresh plant, save the stalks and you can grind it into powder for incense or for other like herbal baths and things like that. You can just use the leaves for an herbal bath, infusing it into hot water for about 20 minutes and then use the steam, pour it over your body, do all of that. You can create a salve or a spray for pain and relaxation and clarity. You can do meditations with clary sage as it is a guide into the underworld. The crystals this month, or I should say the crystals this month, are citrine. And I kind of was just going to go with citrine, but actually smoky quartz came with it and they grow together. They often are, a smoky citrine. So smoky quartz and citrine together. And that would be a perfect stone to work with this month. And usually I pick 3 stones because crystal healers, we love 3 stones. We use 3 different kinds of stones in grids. We use them in mojo bags. We use them in medicine bundles. But I feel like, especially when you're not a crystal healer, working with one and going narrow and deep, as my teacher always says, going narrow and deep with one stone can be really, really useful. And I think, focusing on this one combo of stones or working with a citrine and a smoky would be really, really helpful. Now let's talk about them and you might understand why. Now citrine is anything but a lunar stone. It is very sunshiny, very solar, and it works with the solar plexus. So it kind of emphasizes confidence and empowerment, and it has that kind of solar masculine energy. And I wouldn't necessarily call citrine a masculine stone per se, but we think of solar energy as being very active and like I said, masculine. And the idea here is that it's basically activating your power center. And smoky quartz, on the other hand, smoky quartz is very grounding. It's known for its ability to help transmute energy and change energy. And when I say that, I don't mean like, oh, you automatically become a different person or you experience things differently. It helps you make sense of, it grounds you in the present and make sense of things that have happened in the past or that are, you're going through at the moment. So it helps with trauma and difficulties and painful experiences. And it helps to like bring you to a higher state of being because it works with the quartziness of it. And so let's talk about both citrine and smoky quartz are both silicon dioxide. So they're in the quartz family. We call them silicates. Or silicates is how it's spelled, but silicates. And they're trigonal crystal system. They look like smoky quartzes and citrine both look like clear quartzes. They grow in that hexagonal way, and they are macrocrystalline for the most part, meaning you can see their crystal structure on the outside. They have a hardness of 7, 7.5. And so you have to think of all the quartzes. So rose quartz, smoky quartz, citrine, clear quartz, obviously. They're all starting out as silicon dioxide, which is a clear. And what they interact with in the earth is what changes their color. So in the case of citrine, the yellow is from iron. So it varies from pale yellow to like a deeper amber. And it generally isn't orange, but common citrine, what they call quote unquote common citrine, is actually baked amethyst. So you can change the color of amethyst, which is also a silicon dioxide mineral, by baking it. So some people call it fake citrine. And I don't know if I would call it fake because it turns into citrine, but it starts as amethyst, which is, one of the most plentiful, if not the most plentiful crystal in the earth. But citrine is natural citrine, grows into points. Like in the Congo, they are coming out with some really amazing citrine right now. Same with Malawi. And their color is generally uniform. So it's like smoky or champagne or honey. And Congo citrine has a nice smokiness to it. And that's one of the things that's interesting about citrine is that a real citrine, most people are like, oh, that looks like a smoky to me, because they kind of can verge on very similar coloring. But citrine can be very, very pale yellow as well, almost clear and hard to tell. So this is where things get a little complicated because in the earth, it's not like it goes, okay, you're going to be a citrine and you're going to be a smoky. Smoky quartzes are created by natural radiation in the earth. And the natural radiation is very gentle and it comes slowly over time. So you're not going to have radiation coming off a smoky quartz. It's not going to hurt you because it happened millions of years ago. Now, there is irradiated smoky quartz, and this is very similar to the baked amethyst thing. So what they do is they'll take milky quartz, and the difference, though, is that baked amethyst is not dangerous, whereas irradiated smokies can be full of radiation really quickly. So they'll take a milky quartz, and then they subject it to like gamma ray radiation. That's normally used to clear germs from medical equipment and food. So yuck. But it'll get this very deeply pigmented, smoky quartz looking. It's almost entirely opaque. Okay. So actually, if you ask sellers, they're supposed to tell you if it's irradiated or not. So quartz colored with natural radiation from Mama Earth, not radioactive, safe to carry. The ones that are irradiated, and actually there's a ton of irradiated crystals. Topaz, hot pink or red tourmaline that's really bright, some colored diamonds, deeply colored kunzite, heliodor sometimes is irradiated, and like blue topaz is most definitely usually irradiated. And they're usually used in gemology, like in, making stones that you would wear like on rings and that are faceted and those kind of things. And they're supposed to wait after they're irradiated before they're brought into the market so that their half-life is now almost nil. But, one of the things about smoky quartzes that have been irradiated is that they fade very, very quickly when they're exposed to sunlight. They're super dark. If somebody tells you that there's a smoky from Arkansas, that's probably irradiated because most smokies aren't from Arkansas. Clear quartz is from Arkansas. So you just want to be aware that you can irradiate smokies and you can make citrines, but the natural ones of those stones are the ones I work with and would be best to work with. Now, citrine is used, again, like I said, for empowerment. It's used for abundance work. It's used for confidence. It's also used for like raising the mood, for happiness and joy. It works with creativity. It works with like taking action. Like I said, it's a solar stone, so it's an active stone. And it kind of helps you, those visions that you have of what you want in the world, it helps make it a reality. And that's part of the medicine that we're working with this month with the astrology and the stone, or the card of the month. So yeah, it's really an awesome stone to work with. It increases energy. Like physically, it's great for like energy surges, improving stamina, improving strength. It helps with the endocrine system. It helps with weight loss. It helps with supporting metabolism. So when you work with citrine and you have that lab treated citrine, a lot of people think like, oh, it's the same thing as natural citrine. And it really isn't. But that's my opinion. I mean, some people just swear by heat treated citrine. You go for it if that's you, but that's not what I'm talking about. There is citrine that comes that color. It's called Madeira citrine, and it's really rare. So if you're getting it on the market and it's inexpensive, think of it as heat treated amethyst because that's what's happening. So smoky quartz, on the other hand, is very grounding and protective. It is one that protects and clears the energy field. It works in the auric field. It helps connect with the earth. It transmutes energy. It helps takes densities like gray bubbles out of the body. If you're someone who practices Reiki and that's something you visualize, that's what it's helping to remove. It's great for people actually going through cancer treatments and radiation. It has like a coffee color. It can be kind of brownish. And a lot of people think like that doesn't look like a real smoky. And really what you're looking at is what a real smoky looks like. And then the gray ones are really ones that are irradiated. So there are a lot of wonderful stones for detoxing. Selenite's one, but smoky quartz is just an amazing detoxer. It's good for protection against like people who suck your energy, like energy vampires or psychic vampires. Smoky is really great as just like an overall, I'm carrying this on the daily because it is so good with transmuting energy with protection, for grounding, all those things. So it is a great stone, and you can work with them together. Now, you can work with smoky if you're, thinking of citrine as being a solar stone. You'll be working with that in the right hand, and you can work with smoky in the left hand, and kind of visualize yourself moving energy. You should be able to find points pretty easily. Now, natural citrine's a little more expensive. Natural smoky is a little expensive. They're not overwhelmingly expensive, though. You're not going to be paying so much money that's going to break the bank. I think you should be able to find a nice, 3-inch point for $20 or something. But again, maybe that's just where I shop. So trust Smoky. Smoky is a great one to be carrying with you. It helps with stress too, and anxiety and all of those great things. And if you didn't know, smoky quartz was really sacred to the Druids. It was said to represent the power of the earth gods and goddesses, and associated with Hecate, the goddess of magic. So you have some of that energy. And smoky quartz actually became really popular during the Victorian era in Britain. It was worn for mourning jewelry in the 19th century. And because mourning jewelry was really popular during the Victorian era, you have some really beautiful old pieces. And Queen Victoria was said to be wearing smoky quartz after the death of her husband, Prince Albert. And that's where the trend started. So that's kind of interesting. And smoky is found all over the world. Citrine, a little less important, a little less, I shouldn't say important, but a little less available. So you're going to spend a lot more money for citrines. But look for Congos because they're so beautiful, and a lot of them come in that kind of cathedral growth. So our animal of the month is one that I've worked with a lot over the last few years. In fact, I kind of pulled up to see how many times I've worked with snake over the last 3 years, and it's been 4 or 5 times that snake has come up. And snake journeys and snake medicine is really powerful for healers. And so it's no mistake that snake comes up, especially during times of transformation and change. So of all the reptiles, snake probably has the most fear and intrigue. I mean, she is the foundational story, basically, of the Bible, that are, the Old Testament and the Old Testament for Christians, the Torah. It's in, snake is in the Quran. There are about 3,000 different species of snake, and only 10 of them are venomous. But we do have a part of our animal brain that just reacts immediately to snake. So if you're afraid of snake, that's not a mistake. You're not doing something wrong. It's pretty natural to be afraid of snakes. But because snake wielded the first transgressions, we kind of associate snake with those things that we fear: the intrigue, sexuality, sin, temptation. And then, it moved into the medicine. Medicine and healers worked with snake medicine. We see that in the caduceus and in the Hermetic symbols. So we have a lot of idea of snake working for healing. And she's always worked with change and transformation, because snake was always seen also, like Persephone, like Clary Sage, as a liminal creature that walked, or I should say slithered between worlds, because she represented life and death and the masculine and the feminine. And there's a lot of mythology around that too. And so snake is the symbol of alchemy and healing. And because snake moves along the ground, she's very sensitive to the vibrations of the earth. And so she connects with that primal earth energy. In Eastern tradition, she is the representative of the Kundalini that lies coiled at the base of the spine, that rises up the spine. So snake medicine is the energy of cosmic consciousness, wholeness, sexuality, creativity. And because of the process of shedding skin, snake is seen as one who completely changes, because snakes can't grow. Their skin doesn't grow with them. So they have to actually get out of their whole skin. And so it is a great metaphor for when we're going through growth and we need to shed everything to get to the next place. So when I do the journeys of the month, I explain everything about the medicine. So I go much more in depth with snake. But if you're starting to experience transformation and change, consider working with snake, especially if you're activating as a healer. Thank you for listening to Centered, and thanks for hanging out to the end of this episode. So many people have listened since the beginning, since 2020 when I started this podcast, and I appreciate you hanging out with me every month and listening to my readings and listening to my pontifications and my conversations. I love doing this podcast. And a few people have asked me, hey, I love your podcast. Do you offer in-person sessions? And I wanted to share a little bit about what I'm offering in my Moon and Stone Healing Academy's offering. So I do one-on-one sessions with people. I do both tarot readings. I do earth medicine and shamanic sessions. I do some where I combine them. I do distant ones. I do in-person ones. And when I do in-person, I go to Altaview Wellness Center in Harrisburg, where I have a room and I see people for all of those things. So I love seeing people in person, but I am also able to do distance sessions. I do classes and circles. So I wanted to tell you about a couple of the things that I'm offering. So first, if you've listened to this podcast at all, you know that I am really passionate about ethics and boundaries. And I've been very, very fortunate to study with some amazing boundary queens in my life. One of the great things about studying with good teachers is if you're doing Reiki or you're doing energy healing or you're doing tarot, they don't make light of it. They don't make fun of it. They treat it as a profession, which it is for some of us. For me, it is. And when I started thinking of myself as a professional, I began to realize that I really had to come in with some professional guidelines and structures. It was good for my clients. It was good for me, for my sanity, for the wellness of other people. I had to really figure out, who am I? Like, what are the ethics I want to bring forward in my circles, in my healing studio, in my classes? And one of the things is that I learned this the hard way because I let myself get triangulated. I became friends with my clients, and I consider many of my clients people that I would love to be friends with. But I had to really reckon with those things and figure out, how do I want to do this? And so, one of the things I do love to do is research. And so when I started finding myself in over my head and started talking to my teachers, we really got down and buckled into ethics and structures and vision statements. And when I began my practice, I had made those mistakes of not having a structure that I felt comfortable with. My boundaries were very loosey-goosey, and I let some people in, pushed other people out. So I've always taught ethics and boundaries in my circles, and through the years that I've taught, it really deepened and expanded. And it went to the core of my mission statement, which is love, kindness, and compassion. And from there, I really built an approach that was loving, kind, and compassionate to my clients, but also loving, kind, and compassionate to me. And so, I began really going on the path of figuring out how to do no harm but take no shit. And ethics and learning how to hold space were the cornerstones of my successful energy healing practice. They became my North Star, the thing that guides me and helps me honor my clients and their energy, and also me and my energy, because I suffered from a lot of burnout. So I'm really honored to bring you the full scope of my research in the class, Holding Space, Ethics and Trauma-Informed Crystal Therapy, which is available now on my website. And my goal with this class was to empower energy healers, tarot readers, anyone who falls out of the realm of having a professional overseeing body that tells you what your ethics are. So we've come to have to make our own in energy healing, and it can feel like the Wild West out there, but you don't have to be that way. You can be the professional. And I think this class really kind of nails that down. I originally taught this class at Hibiscus Moon Crystal Academy, and I'm really honored to offer it here at the Moon and Stone Healing Academy. So check that out. I'm also starting some advisory groups, and this is an idea that kind of comes from the psychological model of having psychologists who kind of meet and talk about cases in a very general way. They brainstorm ideas on treatment. They brainstorm ideas on approach. They help catch maybe blind spots that we have within ourselves when we're trying to help a client. And it's a really wonderful way to have equals coming together to really talk about ethics and boundaries. So I have one group starting for energy healing. I have another group starting for tarot. And the dates and times aren't set because I'm bringing people together. I'm going to figure out the best times for those people. And then what I'm going to do is facilitate them. So that's happening. And those will be done by love donation. And then I'm having another live event every month. At the last Wednesday of the month, I'm doing a live Q&A, 90 minutes long. You can ask me any question within my realm of offerings. Tarot, religion, mythology. You can ask me about crystal healing and energy healing and how to approach something. You can ask me about... Actually, you can ask questions about any of my special interests: crystals, crystal healing, tarot readings, shamanic healing, shamanic journey, earth medicine, hands-on healing work, ethics and boundaries, of course, angels, ascended masters, guides, psychic work, religion, mythology, meditation, recovery, ritual and ceremony, art, grief. Hey, I'll probably take a crack at anything, so just join us last Wednesday of the month from 6 to 7:30 p.m. We're going to meet on Zoom, so you have to register for that. You can do that on my website. And it's only $10. If you're struggling to pay that, please reach out and we can work something out. I love doing trades and other things like that, but $10 a month isn't too much. And I thought that maybe some of you might be interested in like kind of asking me some questions about classes if you are really interested in doing some work with me. Now, another option for working with me is doing memberships. If you love these readings, the free readings that I do on my podcast, I do have a membership group. And in that group, I do readings at the full moon, the new moon. I offer shamanic journeys every month. And we do a live chat every week. It's a circle where we are very informal. We have coffee. We bring up topics that we're interested in. I pull cards some weeks. I talk about dreams other weeks. We just explore whatever's coming up in our world for the week. And it's a really awesome support system for women who are all spiritually connected. And we are really open to having men in there. We just haven't had any yet. So please consider some of these and supporting my business and supporting my work. I love being able to offer you some free content with my podcast, but I do have some paid stuff on my website. So I hope to see you there, and thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Centered with me, Angie Yingst. If you'd like to send me a question or comment about this show or any shows, you can send them to Angie@themoonandstone.com.